Welcome to Learn with Joy Champs, where learning is fun and effective. I'm Lay Leng, the principal and founder of Joy Champs, and I'm thrilled to share with you my expertise today. With over 30 years of experience and having guided more than 2,000 pupils to excel in their studies, I'm thrilled to guide you through graph-based questions in science using the data presented in the question. Our lesson today will focus on the purpose of line graphs, bar charts, as well as pie charts. We'll also be sharing with you the type of graph that will normally be used to present the data when the dependent as well as the independent variables are continuous. Let's dive into the lesson on graph-based questions using data. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Learn with Joy Champs for more engaging lessons. Let's get started. What is the most common ways people use to present data? The most common ways will be using the line graphs, the bar graphs, as well as the pie charts. Now, what is a line graph? A line graph should be used when the independent and the dependent variables are continuous. What it means is both the x-axis as well as the y-axis consist of numbers. Then we choose to use a line graph. Now, what about a bar chart? A bar chart should only be used if the independent variable, which is the variable that you change in the experiment, is categoric. Categoric means that they are values in words and not numbers. So, for example, if you are doing a survey and you want to find out which is the type of fruits that is the nicest, then along the x-axis you will actually have to plot the types of fruits which are actually words. So therefore you cannot use a line graph because there is no numbers involved. So we select the bar chart. And the third type of graph that we can use is actually called the pie chart. Now for the pie chart, it's similar to the bar chart in the sense that the values that we are presenting is categoric, meaning it is not numbers. Okay, pie charts are often used when we want to illustrate data using percentage. Now this is very common in primary 6 topic under living together, where we would like to find out what are the different types or the percentages of the different living things living in a community. Then the most favorable type of graph that we will choose to present this will be the pie chart. Now, boys and girls, remember this: when both the independent and the dependent variables are continuous, meaning both axes contain numbers, then how should the data be presented? Well, let's take a look. For example, if you have a kettle of water that is boiling and you would like to track how the temperature of the water changes with time, then what will be the best kind of graph that you will have to choose? Well, ask yourself, I need to track with time how much the temperature is increasing, so the variable that is changing is time. And the dependent variable that I'm going to measure is the temperature. Therefore, both independent and dependent variables are numbers. And we will choose a line graph which will look like this. I hope you are clearer now on how people select the different kinds of graph to present data. And all these graphs will then be the kind of graphs that you will be tested, so you must be familiar with them. With that, let's hop on to the second type of graph-based question that I'm going to teach you today, and it's called using data. Let's read the question together. The graph shows the amount of rain in country W every year. The table shows some information about the growth of rice and barley. And the question reads, which plant can grow in country W? Is it 1, rice only, or is it 2, barley only, or 3, both barley and rice, or is it number 4, neither barley nor rice? Now, as normal, we always say, before you can answer any question, scan the question for important information. So in this case here, we highlight the amount of rain in country W every year. So this is a very important piece of info that the question is telling us we are looking at rainfall in country W from January to December. Second piece of information that is very important in this question is the graph. So we need to know that the information provided in the table actually shows the amount of time required for the rice as well as the barley to mature and amount of rainwater that it requires. Now, then what is the question? The question asked for this is, which plant can grow in country W? So what should we do when we encounter this kind of question? Let me provide you with a quick tip. Firstly, we always study the graph first. So when studying the graph, we have to first look at the two axes. What do they represent? In this case here, the x-axis, which is the horizontal axis, represents the month of the year from January all the way to December. And the y-axis actually shows us the number of units of rain that fall in country W every single month. Then, once you have understood what each axis represent, we now go over and take a look at the information provided in the table. Now, what does it say? It says that rice requires 5 months to mature, to become an adult, and it requires minimum 5 units of rain. In other words, as long as there's 5 or more units of rain, rice will be able to grow in this country W. And for barley plant, it requires for rice plant, it requires 5 months to mature and at least 5 units of water. Now, what about the barley? Well, the barley requires 4 months to become an adult plant and it needs 2 units or less of water. So what does it mean? It means that barley needs 4 months to mature, 2 units or less of rain in order to be able to grow in country W. Now, once we have gotten that information from the graph, what do we do next? We now go over to the graph and look once more and try to figure out whether each plant can grow. So how do we do that? Let's take a look. Let's focus on the barley plant first. Now, what does it say? It requires 2 units or less of rain. So the magic number is 2. So we are going to take a ruler and we're going to draw a line across 2 units of rain from January all the way to December. Now, when we have done that, our job is next to count. How many of these months actually have a minimum of 2 units or less of rainfall? And it will be January, February, March, November, and December. And that is a total of 5 months. So when you look at the information provided in the diagram, in the table, it says barley requires 4 months and we have 5 months which satisfy the condition for barley to grow. So therefore, barley will be able to grow in country W. Now, having done that, we apply the same strategy and we now look at the rice plant. It requires a minimum of 5 units of rain. Anything more than 5 will be favorable to the rice plant. So what do? We take a ruler and we draw a line across 5 units of rain. Then, what do? We count the number of months where there is 5 or more units of rainfall in country W. And we have June, July, August, September, and October that satisfy this condition. Hence, rice plant will be able to grow in country W. So, what do you learn, boys and girls? These 2 plants are able to survive in country W based on our analysis. Hence, the answer to this question is option number 3. Now, I hope you have learned how to handle questions using data when you are presented a graph. So, without much further ado, now let's hop on to take a look at another question, and it's still based on using data presented in the question. Let's read. Now, 3 springs, X, Y, and Z, have the same length. Now, when the springs are hung from the ceiling using 3 identical blocks, the results are shown on the right. Now, which of the following correctly shows the relationship between the elastic spring force and the extension of the springs, X, Y, and Z? Now, if you would like to try this question on your own, pause the video now and I will give you 1 minute for you to try. So boys and girls, get ready, analyze, and I'm going to play the music for 1 minute. time is up, boys and girls, but if you still require more time, feel free to pause the video. Otherwise, let me share with you how to handle this question. Now, first and foremost, we have to scan the question for the most important information. And in this case here, we picked out the fact that X, Y, and Z have the same length. And that all three springs are actually hung from the ceiling and they are using identical blocks. And finally, what are you supposed to pick out from the four graphs presented to you? It is the one that correctly shows the relationship, all right, which is between the elastic spring force and the extension of the spring. Now, having said that, what is a quick tip that we should learn today? Number one is we first look at the diagram above. Now, from the diagram above, what do you realize? X has to support 3 blocks and it stretches 3 centimeters. Exactly the same as spring Y and Z. So what does it mean? It is the stiffest because it has to support 3 blocks and it only stretches 3 centimeters. Spring Y has to support 2 blocks and it also stretches 3 cm. And spring Z only needs to support 1 block, but it stretches 3 centimeters. So what does it show? It is the most elastic among the 3. So what's our conclusion? After analyzing the diagram, we conclude that Z will stretch the most, followed by Y and then X. With that, let's hop over and study the graph on the left hand side. Now you can see in graph number 1, all the 3 springs stretch the same length. Now that is incorrect because from our conclusion, they stretched differently. Then what about option 2? Now in option 2, you realize that spring Z stretches the least. Now if it stretches the least, then it's incorrect because our analysis of the diagram shows us that Z will stretch the most. So option 2 is also eliminated. Now what about option 3? Now if you realize option 3, Z stretches mid-range. And again, based on our conclusion, this is false. So that leaves us with only last option, option 4, whereby you have Z to stretch the most, followed by Y and then X. And that's exactly what we have concluded when we analyze the diagram. Therefore, in this question, option 1, 2, and 3 are wrong, and option 4 is the correct answer. That's a wrap to our lesson on how to tackle graph-based question using data presented in the questions. We have covered the essential type of graphs like the line graph, the bar chart, and the pie chart today, and how to select the type of graph to use given the kind of data you are presented. As you continue your journey in science, do remember the key points I've shared with you today on how to tackle graph-based question. Your newfound knowledge would definitely be a valuable asset to your future challenges. Before you go, please take a moment to like and share with your friend and subscribe to Learn with Joy Champs. Please don't hesitate to drop us a comment or any suggestion below. We'll be glad to hear from you. Keep learning and we'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.